Welcome to our February 14th regular council meeting. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll call the meeting to the order. At this time, we're at item A, added items. Does anyone have added items? I see Councillor Ryan.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I just have one item to add, and it would be under closed session under section 16.
Thank you, Councillor Ryan.
Thank you.
Any further added items? Seeing none, I'd ask for a motion, please, to accept the agenda as amended. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I'll make the motion to adopt the agenda for the Monday, February 14th, regular and closed council meeting for Town of Olds. As amended.
Thank you. Those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Item 2A, regular council meeting minutes, January 24. Ask for a motion, please. Councillor Latz.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I move that we accept the minutes from January 24th as presented.
Does council have any questions, errors, omissions? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Moving down to item 3, presentations and delegations. It's an honor to have our delegation approach the bench, and our MLA, Nathan Cooper. Welcome today.
An honor might be a little bit of an overstatement to have me, but I do appreciate the opportunity to be here today, Your Worship, Mayor Judy, and so great to see you, members of council and administration. Thank you all so much for everything you do on a day in and day out basis. Purpose of my visit today is largely to hear from you. As you know, we had a municipal election here. It's already creeping up on 6 months, I think, 4 months. Time flies when you guys are busy about the work of the people. And my goal is really just to connect. I try to effort to meet with councils in a formal fashion like this annually. Obviously, COVID has made that a little bit different, but I really hope that this year we get to do that in person and regularly. So if I can, come to see you once a year in person, and hopefully we can also meet in other places, be it at AUMA or other times in perhaps less formal settings, is where we can also have some robust discussion and conversation about the priorities of your residents and of council more broadly. So other than a very brief overview of the next couple of months from the provincial government's perspective, obviously you will all be aware, and I'd like to extend my thank you for the town responding immediately to the lifting of the REP program. I know that hasn't been the case in all municipalities, and some others have expressed some concern. Not here in Old Didsbury Three Hills, but we've seen lots of public discussion about that in other jurisdictions. So the government did announce the plan to return to normalcy. That includes additional restrictions. Some additional restrictions were lifted again today, and then we'll see more restrictions lifted again the end of February, including masking and things of that nature. The other thing that will happen here over the next number of weeks is on the 22nd of February, there will be a throne speech. The government is resetting their legislative agenda, so we look to hear from Her Honor on the 22nd. That will be followed almost immediately on Thursday by the provincial budget, and of course the provincial budget comes with much fanfare and excitement, and for some it's the best day of the year. It's not necessarily me, but for many others. And they also, I feel very positive about the budget with respect to investment in the constituency of Old Didsbury Three Hills in the upcoming budget. We've had some very positive conversations with members of Treasury Board and the Minister of Finance. And so, you know, I don't know all of the details, but I do am hopeful that we made some very strong presentations for projects here in the constituency. And so it's my hope that we will see some of those things funded in the upcoming budget. Then, of course, the legislative session will proceed in the weeks following, all the way up until the early part of June, and then the House will rise for the summer. So I'm happy to invite each and every one of you to the legislature building. I know many of you came during the last session and were guests of the speaker and in the office there. Any of you who haven't been up and would like to, I'm more than happy to take time and host you there. And in fact, I'm just working on our budget tickets, and so I may have a few extra tickets if you would like to come up and see the budget address on the 24th. We may be able to work in a couple for folks around the table. So I'm happy to take questions, whatever they may be them on the pandemic, the recovery, other issues about the day, and we can take it from there.
Well, thank you for your introductory. It sounds very promising. Thank you, Mr. Cooper. I would open the floor at this time to council members and ask if you have any questions, and then I'll open it to administration. Councillor Ryan.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I might as well start the ball rolling. Welcome, Mr. Cooper. Great to see you again. And yes, I was one of the ones that had an opportunity to go up when you invited some members to council to hear the budget presentation last year. So any of the new members of council who want to go up, it's actually quite a nice event to attend and very informative. It was a great day, and thank you very much for your hospitality. Nathan, I was just wondering if you could tell me a little bit about MSI funding going forward. Does the government have plans for the next stage, I guess, with regards to the funding model? I know that we've had lots of talks, but I was just wondering if you had any insight as to how that's going to proceed, because it's obviously decreased quite a bit. And obviously we have capital projects that we want to do and need help doing them from the province.
Thank you, Councillor Ryan. And with respect to MSI, there's always consistent, verbose conversation around MSI on all sides of this issue about what is the long-term forecasts. And I think that is one of the things that I hear the most from municipalities. Of course, municipalities would like to have additional and significant resources in MSI. But the thing that I hear the most about is asking for stability in MSI funding. So fine, if it's not going to be as much as we want, newsflash, it's likely not going to be as much as anyone wants, because we all know that local councils can best spend those dollars, and they stretch them as far as possible, but which is why they consistently want more, and so I value and appreciate that. But it's unlikely that they will be everything that we want. But in particular, I've been pressing upon the minister to try to create stability in what those dollars will be, so that municipalities can plan and structure their budgets around that. As a former municipal councillor, I know the importance of MSI, and I have impressed upon the minister and the government the overwhelming value that MSI dollars provide municipalities, and so I continue to advocate on behalf of municipalities. And I know moving MSI dollars from one year to a previous year has now created some excitement in terms of the numbers that we now have available. So for what it's worth, I'll continue to advocate for strong, stable, consistent MSI funding.
Okay, thank you very much.
Well shared. Thank you. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl, and thank you and welcome, Mr. Cooper. I just have a question, and it might be a little bit premature. I realize we're early in the process, but obviously the Alberta Provincial Police force and service. Many of us attended an info session last week, and I realize again that that process is very early, but a lot of concern concern starting to emerge around public awareness, public participation, public communication, and I think part of it is you don't know what you don't know. And again, I realize the process is early, but having and getting to a point where there would be a full costed plan made available, and then communication to the public, and whether that's in the form of a referendum as well. But just wondering your thoughts, and I realize this is going to stretch out over many years or a couple of years.
Well, thank you for the question, and I was aware of the event that took place here in Olds last week or the week prior. I unfortunately was not in the constituency as I'd hoped to actually attend that. I think they have one in Three Hills or Drumheller coming up that I intend to observe. The province continues to work on communicating about the costs. This is the primary concern for many around would a provincial police force cost exponentially more or would it not? I know I hold an unpopular opinion amongst some municipally elected individuals. When I talk to the majority of constituents around the region, if they aren't a member of the RCMP or their family or they're municipally elected, they speak mostly in supportive terms with respect to a provincial police force. If they have some sort of close personal connection to a member of the RCMP or they're a municipal councillor, they mostly speak negatively about a provincial police force. So it's a real mixed bag, and this is why I think consultation on it, as well as potentially a referendum, I know that the Premier has talked about that in the past, on provincial police force. But I think the most important key factor on this is getting an apples-to-apples comparison on costing. It might be apples to apples, but not everyone, large groups of people will say, well, who were the apples picking the apples? And members who have a vested interest will say those aren't the right apples, and members of the government or people who are speaking in favor of the police force will say we only had the best apples. So it's always going to be a bit of a controversial discussion, but I think it's an important one to have. At the end of the day, many Albertans would like the provincial government to find ways that Alberta can have more control over its affairs than the federal government. And I'm not speaking about, I don't believe that the majority of Albertans want to separate or anything like that, but I do believe the majority of people that I speak with would like to have the ability to control more of the decisions here in Alberta than have them imposed upon us by Ottawa.
You're good with that? Any further council questions at this time? Councillor Daly.
Thank you, Mayor Judy. Thank you, Mr. Cooper, for your presentation today. One thing that's come up several times, not only in the public's eye, but also around these council chambers, is the review that's going on right now with the ambulance response times and the resources that are available there. And I realize there's a study going on right now to review that system. Do you have any update for us at all on that?
So I don't have an update specific to the review as it is ongoing, but the hours of work review, so there's two pieces. There's like a full system review and then there's an hours of work review. And I have to apologize, it may be called something slightly different than hours of work review. But I know that as they are in the process of reviewing that, they are making some changes immediately as a result of the information that they're coming across. So for example, and it doesn't impact you, but just in terms of the entire constituency, the Wheatland Regional Ambulance Commission still exists. It's one of the few ambulance societies that exist left in the province. And they were on a unique structure in terms of how their employees, the hours of work that they had to work. And as a result of the review, they made an immediate change, taking them off of that and putting them on a more normal system so that they could have more ambulances on the road on a more regular basis. And so that's been a positive in terms of them actually making adjustments on the fly. This issue, outside of the political machinations of things happening in the province and COVID, EMS is the number one issue that people speak to me and speak to the office about. It is a massive concern, and one of the reasons why the level of conversation across the province has finally elevated. When I was an opposition member, we were frantic about this. We've been frantic about it. And finally, it's starting to impact the large urban areas. And so it's becoming a provincial-wide discussion as a result of that. It's unfortunate that that's what it took to get here. I do think that some of the immediate steps that were taken, the announcement was 2 weeks ago. There's a 10-point plan. Some of those 10 points will make an immediate impact, and then hopefully finally get to a longer-term solution for EMS, because the current situation is totally untenable, and I have expressed that directly to the minister and the highest levels of government.
Very good. Thank you. Councillor Blatz?
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you to Mr. Cooper. Going a little further along with that, in light of what we've seen over the past 2 years with the pandemic and the struggles that our healthcare system has had, there's been a lack of doctors, a lack of nurses, and particularly a lack of available hospital beds. Will the focus be a little more now for the next little while to be somewhat more prepared and to be providing, particularly in rural areas, more healthcare systems and more availability to provide better, I can't say better care, or hospitals provide better care, but more available care if we have this type of situation continuing or coming back? Because I think we all understand that no one was prepared for this, and no one had any way to determine how to handle it. But I think that going forward, I'm hoping this government will be looking to the future and how we can be better prepared.
Yeah, thank you, Council Blatz. And listen, there's that saying, never let a good crisis go to waste. And I think as a result of the pandemic, we have, there's no opportunity that we have faced together to make meaningful and significant change to our healthcare system for us to be better prepared for future significant healthcare events. And so I firmly believe that over the next 12 to 24 months, the government is going to take significant and intentional steps to identify gaps in the system, ways we can reallocate resources, to find ways that we can make meaningful reform, and quite frankly, to maximize the use of assets that we already have inside the system. So there are lots of cases of underutilized assets that could have been better utilized if we were slightly more prepared. And so I think it's very important that as we move forward, much of the conversation around healthcare moves from crisis to preparation.
That's good to hear, and thank you for that question. Around the table one more time with council. Councillor Wilson?
Along those same lines and tied in with the events of the past 2 years and the pandemic, could you share any thoughts, either from yourself or from the party, around addressing domestic violence and addiction and mental health that are front and center and in large part attributable to the last 2 years?
Like, listen, there's no doubt that the response to the pandemic had impacts on our communities. And so that's manifested itself in all sorts of different ways. And I think you've identified some of the negative ones that have been exposed as a result of some of the challenges that we faced. The government has taken a fairly proactive, I guess, is a poor choice of words, because it's also in the middle of the crisis, but a fairly aggressive approach to investing in mental health. They've also taken a fairly aggressive approach in a significant investment in recovery. We have announced thousands of recovery beds all across the province to help deal with the opioid crisis, and largely that has been well received. Of course, there's a wide variety of opinion on how best to deal with the opioid crisis, but I hope that if the pandemic has revealed anything, it will also help reveal the devastation that the opioid crisis is having amongst Albertans. You know, there are literally hundreds of Albertans dying every year due to the opioid crisis, and so the government needs to take lots of proactive steps on this file. It's why there's a specific ministry for mental health and addictions, and I think that the Minister Ellis has done some great work on this particular file, but there's a lot of work to do, and there's a lot of future work that needs to be done with respect to mental health in our youth populations and otherwise. You know, we're not going to fully know the full impact of the response to the pandemic, quite likely for generations. So much of my children's life has been impacted in a way that none of our lives were. And so there's going to be some kind of long-term impact. Exactly how deep, severe, and otherwise, time will largely tell, and I think the recovery will also play a big factor into that. So it's definitely something that is of importance to me, and I think the government has placed some significant value on this. There's lots of work to do, but I actually think that it's one of the areas that the government has worked diligently to try to invest in.
Thank you. Councillor Ryan?
Yep. Thank you, Mayor Dahl. Just to go further along, talking about recovery from the COVID, I was just wondering if, I know the municipalities received funding to help with costs that all the costs of obviously were lost when, you know, you have to close arenas and other municipal buildings. I was just wondering when it comes to the budget that's going to be presented this spring, whether or not money will be again coming to municipalities for that as a part of the recovery.
That is, I don't know the answer to that, if that is going to be included in the upcoming budget or not. I can effort to try to find some information. This close to the budget, they get a little bit sensitive about announcing budget-related programs prior to the budget, but I'll certainly reach out and find out if they can provide us any sort of overarching statements that might imply what would be in there.
Very much.
We certainly did forward a letter, and you are correct, there's no response to date. We'll have to see what that reveals. I was with the understanding it was winding down. Yes, go ahead, Councillor Ryan.
Thank you, Mayor Doll. Just supplemental to that, it did cost the town money for implementing the REP program that was part of the province's mandate. So there is going to be significant costs involved in just doing that, not just loss of revenue, but costs that in order to operate that program. So anything you can do to put an ear and put a bug in somebody's ear would be great.
You bet.
Okay, final offer to council, and then I'd ask administration if they'd like to ask a question. Nothing further then, I'll open the floor to administration if anybody would like to ask. Mr. Merritt?
Thank you, Your Worship, and MLA Cooper. It's been a pleasure to work with you over the last 5.5 years, and I have had a chance to be in your speaker's office, and it was for various meetings that you took the time to look at our briefing materials and actually supported us with questions to various ministers. It's maybe not the most popular thing, but it was something that worked for us, and certainly we appreciated that. So I just want to thank you for your support over the past number of years as our MLA to basically recognizing our unique issues. Secondly, Councillor Ryan took my question on COVID, and I understand your answer, having been with the province for many years. I do have one more question, and it's in relationship to the McKinnon report. Councillor Wilson talked about policing, but at my tender age, I'm also wondering if the province is still moving on the Canada Pension Plan, and that was one of the highlights of the McKinnon report at one point in time.
Yep. Well, first of all, Michael, from my office and from myself personally, let me just say thank you to you for your public service. Sometimes mayors and council and otherwise get all of the glory, if that's a real thing, I don't know. But get all of the recognition, and elected folks know that so often it's the hard work and dedication of those who support elected officials that really allow for smooth functioning organizations, and so it is a true public service and takes a lot to be available to residents and otherwise, be it in the grocery store or otherwise. And so I really do appreciate your hard work and wish you nothing but successes in the future, and a retirement full of shuffleboard and cardigans or whatever your jam is. I'm not sure, lawn bowls maybe. Travel, now that some restrictions are lifted. The province has made some pretty definitive statements about delaying any decision on the pension plan, and also very clearly indicating that if the pension was to make any changes, that it would be done through referendum as well. If you were to look at the political calendar, I think it would be unlikely that either of those two big issues were dealt with prior to the next provincial election. So I guess time will tell, but they may or may not be an election issue as well. I would speculate. Sometimes speculating in politics is dangerous, but thank you again. Appreciate it.
Also been there. Are any further questions from administration? Well, since you brought it up, I will make it appropriate to go ahead and bring my special tribute on behalf of council. It's a good timing. So, ladies and gentlemen, and special viewing guests and staff, today we acknowledge and support our Chief Administrative Officer, Mr. Michael Merritt, on his decision to retire his dedicated service with the Town of Olds. Mr. Merritt started employment with the Town of Olds on May 8th, 2017, and officially shuts the door behind him at the end of the day on February 25th at 4:30 p.m. We thank you for inspiring the staff, Mr. Merritt, with your laughter and your mentorship during the past 4 years. and your collaboration with council as a whole. As you retire from your career of service, Michael, we wish you a happy and healthy life filled with joy and travel with your family and friends. And also, as our MLA has stated, we would like to see your suits and ties disappear and be replaced with your Toronto Maple Leaf jerseys and beer. So congratulations and thank you. And we have a small token at this time, at this period in time, for you. So, thank you, Mr. Cooper, for your time and your patience, and Mr. Merritt.
I'll just say a few comments, and thank you so very much, Mayor and Council, for the gift, but more importantly, the words. It's been truly an honor to work with you and the past councils since 2017. It's been a great enjoyment to be in the town of Folds. What a great community. We thought it's one of the best, and I think it's even better than it ever was. So MLA Cooper is right. I will not be wearing suits too much in the future. And you're right, Your Worship, a lot of Maple Leaf and Red Sox jerseys for sure. I may have to hand off the Maple Leaf Fan Club to Councillor Wilson or to keep it going here in the town. But it's been truly a pleasure and working with council, but I have to say working with a great staff, as some are here today. It's been you're honored when they work so hard to make our community such a better place to be, and I'm so proud of them, and it's been through very difficult times the last 2 years with COVID. As the MLA indicated, it's a unique situation, but we pulled together as a team and as a council, and I think that's the most important thing, and we have to pull together as a community because that's the strength when we're unified together. So thanks so much.
You haven't seen the last of us until the 25th, February 25th at 4:30 p.m., but this is your last council meeting, so thank you for your presence here. Would you like to introduce your other half, Mr. Cooper, before we have?
My assistant?
Yes, absolutely.
Sure. So for those of you who don't know, Ethan Williams, Ethan works in my office, and along with Brenda, who's still there, but Ethan comes out on the road a little bit more with me. He works a little bit out of my speaker office in Edmonton, and then here in the constituency office, and then you may also know him as Councillor Williams from the municipality of Deansburg.
Thank you very much, and thank you again for your time. You're welcome to stay, and we understand if you have to leave. Moving down to item 4 on our agenda. Oh, thank you. Oh. Yep. I would ask for a motion then who would like to make the motion, please, to thank Mr. Cooper? Thank you, Councillor Daly.
Thank you, Mayor Judy. I move that the MLA Cooper be thanked for his attendance to the February 14th, 2022 regular council meeting and speaking to council.
We have item 4, business arising out of minutes or unfinished business. Seeing none, we'll move down to page 10 in your agenda. Item 5A, this is bylaw 2022-4, Chief Administrative Officer. Sorry, got lots of pages to go there. What page is that? 9. What's going on here? I lost a page, just be patient. Here, I found it. There it is. Thank you very much. Okay, page 10. We have 4 motions we're looking for today. We're looking for first reading, second reading, permission for third, and then third and final reading. Who would like to speak to this, please? Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. This item was brought forth a week ago at Policy and Priorities Committee. A few housekeeping items were recommended, and they were accepted with no direction to make other further changes. So that's why we brought it back to the council meeting to get first, second, and hopefully unanimous consent, and then third reading for the bylaw today.
Thank you, Mr. Merritt. I'd ask for first reading at this time. Councillor Ryan?
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I move that Town of Olds Chief Administrative Officer Bylaw 2022-04 be given first reading.
Comments? Questions? I'll call for the vote. Those in favor? Thank you. And second reading, Councillor Blatz.
Thank you, Your Worship. I move that the Town of Olds Chief Administrative Officer Bylaw 2022-04 be given second reading.
Do we have questions? I'll call for the vote. Those in favor? That's carried. Looking for unanimous consent for third reading. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I motion that council give unanimous consent for presentation of the third reading of the Town of Olds Chief Administrative Officer Bylaw 2022-04.
Thank you. And finally, are there any questions? We are looking for permission for third and final reading. Those in favor? That's carried. I'd ask for third and final reading, please. Councillor Walsh.
Yes, I would like to move that the Town of Council Chief Administrative Officer Bylaw 2022-04 be given third and final reading.
I'll call for the vote. Those in favor? That's carried. Thank you for bringing that back to our attention. We are on item new business 6A, page 17 at this time, and this is with regards to our age-friendly designation. And who would like to speak to that at this time? Mr. Wagstaff?
Yes, Your Honor, thank you. So today we do have three separate motions as a recommendation for council. Previous to the election in October, at the last PNP meeting of the last term of council, the Community Lifestyles Committee and their subcommittee with the age-friendly work that they're doing presented to council their proposal for an age-friendly implementation for Olds to become an age-friendly community. With that, the next stages that this committee, this community committee is working on is an application to have the designation of the Town of Olds becoming an age-friendly community. So today, before you is a recommendation for a letter of support from the Town of Olds to this committee so that they may make that application to the Government of Alberta. And then further, the other two recommendations are support for this committee, recognition for the work that they have done to this point in time, and support from the Town of Olds to continue to work with them, with administration and staff.
Thank you again. We also have the age-friendly action plan here for those that would like to review that, and thank you once again for finalizing this and meeting with them. So we have it before us today, and I'd ask for the first motion, please, for the first motion. Who would like to make the first motion? We have three motions, three separate motions. Did you have your hand up? Thank you. Who has their hand up over there? Counselor? Okay, thank you. These darn dividers.
Thank you, Your Worship. I move that council supports in principle efforts to become an age-friendly community, and the Community Lifestyles Committee be thanked for their efforts in championing this journey for Olds to become a designated age-friendly community.
Questions from council at this time? Councillor Blatz.
No, but I just want to make a comment. From looking at this and looking at the work that's gone into it, between the Community Lifestyles Committee and the Age-Friendly Committee, there's been an awful lot of hard work that's gone into this, and I think that they should be recognized for that. And I'm very glad that we've got this information before us.
It certainly has saved the elected officials a lot of work around this table that they've taken on this project, so I'm very proud to see this on our plate. If there's no further questions on our first, I thought you had your hand up there, Mr. Director Andrew. Oh, no, we're good. Okay, so I will call for the motion for the first, or call for the vote for the first motion. Thank you. Those in favor? That's carried. I'm looking for the second motion, please. Councillor Cummings? Council, third motion then.
Thanks. I'll present the motion that council provide a letter of support to the Community Lifestyles Committee to be submitted to the Government of Alberta Seniors and Housing Ministry for the Town of Olds age-friendly designation.
Very good. I'll call for the vote. Those in favor? That's carried. And Councillor Daly.
Thank you, Your Worship. I move that the council direct administration to continue to work with the Community Lifestyles Committee to explore the strategic implementation of age-friendly strategic plan and evaluate impacts to report council for future service levels and budget considerations.
We got it done. Any further questions? Those in favor? Oh, I'm sorry, Councillor Blatz.
And on that note, will this be part of our this year's service level review? Will we have this included in our service level review for this year? Not a future, but this year. Mr. Merritt?
It will be part of the service level review, and also I believe the committee will be coming back to council for a presentation in the not-too-distant future as well.
As you note, Mr. Gryko has also, in his transportation, in the areas where they speak of transportation, has reviewed most of that already in his tender here. So thank you for that. Very good. Now we're voting, right? Those in favor? That's carried. Thanks for all your work, everyone. Councillor Ryan, do you have a question? Okay.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I just have a question, and I'm not sure it's appropriate at this point, but it does have to do with the age-friendly portion of it. The previous council had tried to put together a resolution, as you may well know, and I was just wondering if we need a motion or whatever for that to come back to council, so that this council can deal with that and move forward with the resolution. It involved one for the Alberta municipalities with regards to transportation.
That's a good question, and I'm sure we have an answer for you because that is on the plate as well with them. Mr. Merritt?
Yes, our plan was to bring this back to a future council meeting with a revised resolution, because things have changed over the past year, and therefore we have to do a bit more research. But yes, the intent is that this would be brought forth for council to consider for the Alberta Municipalities Convention in September. And so we'll continue to work to put this together, and it should be coming in either April or May to a council meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Merritt. Do we require a motion for that to come forward, or is it just going to come forward on the agenda?
The motion would probably be for you to approve us taking this forth. So no, basically this was an action that started last year. We'll continue this year, and hopefully there is a process for it to get approved, including council to get a seconder for the motion once it's basically approved by council.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Item 6B, page 32, Olds and District Kiwanis Music Festival. They're looking for some sponsorship. Mr. Merritt?
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, the Kiwanis Music Festival is going to be between March 21st and April the 1st of 2022. It's a sponsorship that the town of Olds has provided for a number of years in the past. And we have received so many comments, because these are for scholarships for the people that attend. And so we get cards of thanks for those that basically are able to continue their interest in potentially their careers into the future. So we're asking again for council's generosity to support this very worthwhile society and this major festival that does take place in the town of Olds. Director Wagstaff, anything to add?
This is common, I believe, to council, as these students and adults as well may bring some life back to the community now that they're able to finally get back to doing live. Anyways, I'd leave it to the discretion of council at this time. Who would put a motion on the table, please? Councillor Walsh?
Yeah, I would like to make a motion. Basically to say that for all the time that I've been on council, this amount of dollars has not changed in almost 20 years, so we're not prone to inflation, I guess. But anyway, I move that the sponsorship of $1,000 for Aquinas Music Festival, March 21 to April 1st, 2022 be approved.
Good point, Councillor Walsh. You're correct. It's never, ever changed. It's been $1,000.
And that's, well, thank you for the elevation and responsibility, but it is something that we can basically make sure is on the service level review, is our sponsorships, to see what the historic values have been and see if any have changed, because a number of these do continue from year to year, and so it's a good point.
It's well brought up. We can certainly reevaluate that. So I'm going to call for the vote at this time. Those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Item 6C, page 39, our 2022 FCSS Family Community Support Services Grant recommendations. And who wants to lead that, please?
I'll ask Director Wagstaff to introduce this item.
And with that, I'm going to introduce Heather Dixon, Community Facilitator, who is one of our specialists in family, community, and support services.
Welcome, Ms. Dixon.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Your Worship and Council Administration. I just want to point out, first of all, that when I was doing this RFD, I was having some computer trouble, and after it was in your agenda package on Friday, I went through it. There is an adding error. There was one line missed. So if you could add on to there an MV CALS, we are recommending that they get $1,250, bringing the total to $120,655.17. So 120,655.17.
Please let everyone around the table know what MVCA acronym is.
Yeah, MV CALS is the Mountain View Community Learning Association. And in your project descriptions that I did provide in your package, they are in there with an explanation of their organization as well. So again, I have laid out for you project descriptions, and I'm just wondering if there were any questions in regards to those. I'd be happy to answer.
Open the floor to council at this time. Councillor Ryan.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. Through you to Ms. Dixon. I was just wondering, was there any groups that applied, or how many, if you could tell me how many groups applied in total, and how many didn't receive any funding?
So this
And what-
year-
And hang on, and just go a little further, and what happens with those groups? Is there another source they can go to?
Yeah, so first of all, this year, all the groups that applied received funding. They were all eligible. So in FCSS, if you would ever like to see it, I'm glad to send it to you. We actually have an eligibility list. So things, for example, that would be recreation in nature, we cannot fund. Things that would be giving food or money to help people's day-to-day life expenses, we cannot do that because there are other government-funded programs that take care of those issues. So we're very careful to go through that and make sure that the groups that are applying for funding fit that eligibility criteria. And then we also, if we have had groups in the past that have come forth and don't fit the criteria, so we just have a discussion with them, show them the information from the province about what fits and what doesn't, and oftentimes we're able to give them some suggestions of other places that they might be able to look for funding. So.
Yes, Mr. Wagstaff.
And it's also notable that council has formatted the policy around new to you grants to be very specific about organizations who do not qualify or projects who do not qualify for FCSS funding is one of the target pieces for new to you grants.
Good to know. Thank you. Are there any more questions for Heather? All right. Thank you very much for that information and the amendment. So we'll ask for the first one to be approved as amended. Well, there's two separate motions here. The first motion I'd like to read as amended. Who would like to make the first motion? Okay. Councillor Ryan.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I move that council approves FCSS grants for 2022 as recommended and as amended by the FCSS Advisory Committee dated of January 19th, 2022 as follows, and there's a list
Right.
is in our package.
I would like, if you, with your permission, Councillor Ryan, can we certainly put the new amended amount of 120,655.17 for the dollars in there?
Sure, we can add that as well as adding the one that was missing, the MV CLA of $1,250, bringing the total to 120,655.17.
Thank you. No further questions? I'll call for the vote. Those in favor? That's carried. And the second motion, Councillor Blatz?
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I move and motion that, that council approves $5,000 allocated in the FCSS budget to be approved by the Director of Community Services in increments up to $2,000 to be distributed to eligible projects that may apply throughout the year.
Thank you. Do those funds typically get used up completely?
Oftentimes they will. We'll have groups that maybe have a new project that comes up, or for an example, in the past, the Chalk About It program that the YES program came up with a few years ago. So little things like that pop up, or they might have, you know, just some supplies or something. So yes, it does often get used.
Thank you. Councillor Ryan?
Thank you, Mayor Dolan. Further along that same questioning, Ms. Dixon, can you tell me, is that $5,000 enough? Like, I know that there has been some that have come up before, and I think Director Wagstaff has spoken to it periodically. So I'm just wondering, going forward, I'm fine with this motion as it sits, but going forward, should we look at increasing that for next time around?
Mr. Wagstaff, do you want to speak to that?
So when it used to be $10,000, and I believe it was 2 or 3 years ago, we moved it down to $5,000 because there had been a number of years successive where it didn't go beyond that. So I think that's suffice at this point. If we had, you know, a need, we would come back to council. And if that was something that was repetitive, then we would look at readdressing that threshold.
Fair enough, thank you.
Good question. One more question, Councillor Wilson?
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. Just along those same lines, how widely known is this funding availability, and how do we communicate it out to the community, and what's the response typically been?
So generally speaking, the way that we advertise this is through the newspaper. We do it on our social media accounts, as well as we have a joint commercial, radio commercial with the other regional FCSS groups in Mountain View County. And then most nonprofit groups will also know that FCSS funding is available to them. It's a pretty popular grant to go after for these groups. Sorry, the second part of that question was how often?
Well, just what typically is the response?
We have had years where our response is much more than we can grant out. So the advisory board is tasked with making those recommendations. And then other years we've had it where it's been pretty bang on. So I don't think I've ever seen a year in the 8 years I've been here that it's been below what we have to offer to fund out.
Very good. We have a motion on. Did you have your hand up? I can't see you. It's behind the computer. You have to go higher.
And Your Worship, I just, for the sake of some of the new councillors, also to recognize that regionally, these are reviewed by staff to ensure that there isn't duplication, or that groups aren't proverbially either intentionally or unintentionally double dipping into FCSS funds across the region. So there is a coordination that way regionally.
And I could also add to that just recently in the last few years, we've actually made each group do a budget specifically for each community so that we know where that money is going, and it just kind of increases the ability to make sure they're not double dipping. So every community, they have to do a budget for the programs they're going to run within our community.
Councillor Wilson?
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. And along those same lines then, as far as the eligibility applying, do many of these same groups just apply annually, year after year?
Some of them do. We have a couple of new ones this year. But for example, Boys and Girls Club, that's been one that has applied for a number of years. Ever changing, though, I will say, that group. This last year they went and from just one daycare / youth facility to adding a whole nother one in within 2 weeks because our other daycare had fallen apart at that point. So yeah, so they do a lot of work in our community, and hospice is another one that depends on us for some of their advertising costs and things like that. But we absolutely have new ones that come forward.
Very good. We have a motion on the floor from Councillor Wilson. If we're done with questions, I'll call for the vote. Those in favor? That's carried. Thank you very much for your presentation. Page 44, please, item 6D in your agenda. We're looking at the pink shirt proclamation. And Mr. Merritt.
Is that you as well, Heather?
Okay.
So I'll ask Heather Dixon to speak to Pink Shirt Day.
Time to practice some kindness.
Correct. So Pink Shirt Day is coming up on Wednesday, February 23rd. So we're encouraging council, as well as our staff and our community, to wear pink shirts. And just in some of the history, you'll see on the proclamation that it was David Shepard and Travis Price that took a stand against a homophobic bullying situation in their school because he was wearing pink. So now we wear pink to remind people to be kind to all others. And we will have pink shirts for council to wear. And I will make sure they're in your mailboxes, or Shelley has them.
I was just going to ask, because I think mine's hiding in the bottom of a box from moving, so it would be greatly appreciated. I would look to entertain a motion, please. Who would like to make this one? Councillor Daly.
Thank you, Mayor Judy. I move that Wednesday, February 23rd, 2022 be proclaimed Pink Shirt Day in the town of Olds.
I'll call for the vote. Those in favor? That's carried. We look forward to it. Thank you very much. Are you all done, Heather?
Yeah.
Have more?
I have another one. I'm still the next one.
Okay.
I said
Well,
earlier, I felt
that's
like it
good
was the
because it's
Heather
World
Show.
Thinking Day, and I really need some of that.
Okay, World Thinking Day. Here we go.
Thank you. This is page 46 in your agenda, folks.
So this is a new proclamation that's been brought forward from the Girl Guides in the, believe it's called the Parkland area. So that includes all the way from the national park boundary all the way to the Saskatchewan border in our central Alberta area. So World Thinking Day is an international day of friendship celebrated by the Girl Guides and Scouts. It started in 1926. My understanding is that Olds was one of the first Girl Guide troops to celebrate this day. And I feel like it was 1924. So it's been around for a while, but this is the first I've ever heard of it. Their request to us was to light the town office blue for February 22nd. A number of different landmarks in Alberta are lit up. The Calgary Tower is lit up. One of the bridges up in Edmonton is lit up. A number of town offices around are lit up. They're all lit blue. So they have made that request to us, and they've asked for this proclamation. The young lady that contacted us originally sent in a video presentation, as she couldn't be here to present to you personally. And I hear that the video doesn't work, but the sound works. So if you'd like to hear that, we could play it, and I'll try to figure out how to do that.
I'm certain we would. How lengthy is it?
I think it's 3 minutes.
That is awesome. Thank you. And while you're doing that, I'd ask Mr. Greiko, our Director Greiko, do we have the ability to even light anything up blue?
We are in the current process of reviewing that request. So myself and Director Wagstaff would be working through that.
Okay.
Hello, my name is Alexis Holmgren, and I am a volunteer representing Girl Guides of Canada. I am the Parkland Area Public Relations and Communications Advisor and have been a member of the organization for 14 years since I was a Brownie. Thank you for the invitation to speak at this town council meeting. Parkland area includes Olds and extends from Airdrie in the south to Camrose in the north, and from the Banff-Jasper National Park borders in the west to Coronation in the east. In fact, the first records of guiding in Parkland area are companies in Olds and Coronation from 1914. Today, there are 5 active Girl Guide groups in Olds, including 1 Spark, 1 Brownie, 1 Guide, 1 Pathfinder, and 1 Ranger unit, collectively serving girls from 5 to 17 years old. Girl Guides of Canada would like to respectfully request that Olds Town Council lights the town office blue in support of World Thinking Day on February 22nd, 2022. Every Girl Guide is part of an international movement of 10 million Girl Guides and Girl Scouts across 150 countries through the World Association of Girl Guides and Girl Scouts, known as WAGS. Held every year on February 22nd since 1926 on the shared birthday of the founders of guiding and scouting, World Thinking Day is a day of international friendship and celebrates the guiding movement. This day is also an opportunity to speak out on issues affecting girls and young women across the globe. The theme for 2022 is Our World, Our Equal Future, and focuses on gender equality as well as the environment. Girl Guides of Canada is organizing a national initiative to light it up blue by lighting landmarks and monuments Girl Guide blue in support of World Thinking Day in Canada. We would greatly appreciate if the Olds Town office could be lit up the color blue on February 22nd as a part of this project. Currently in Alberta, 19 buildings and landmarks in 7 communities will be participating by lighting up blue on February 22nd in support of World Thinking Day. From Parkland area, Red Deer City Hall and Rimbey Town Office will be showing their support by lighting up blue. Other buildings participating from across the province include the High Level Bridge in Edmonton, the Calgary Tower, Fort Saskatchewan City Hall, Festival Place in Sherwood Park, Jubilee Plaza in Fort McMurray, and more. Photos of the event would be publicized on Girl Guides' official social media channels, and local Girl Guide groups would be able to celebrate World Thinking Day by seeing Olds lit up blue in support of them and their sisters around the world. Photos can also be shared on social media by Girl Guides and community members using the hashtag #ShineYourGuidingLight. Thank you for your time.
That was very good. I know we have a very strong group in this area, or we certainly do have a lot of very strong volunteers. There's a young lady in our town by the name of Christine Hogan. Some of us know her around this table, and she is so dedicated to Girl Guides. She lets you know every time she goes and when she's going, and I'm very proud of the group that we have in Olds. They're so dedicated. If there's anything else,
That is all.
questions? All right, hearing none, I'd ask for a motion, please. Oh, did we have Councillor Blatz?
Thank you, Your Worship, and I'd be honored to make this motion. I move that Tuesday, February 22nd, 2022 be proclaimed World Thinking Day in the town of Olds. And I do see that we do have some arrangements made here at the bottom of this for potential lighting, so I think this is a great initiative and I'm really supportive of it.
If there's nothing further to add, I'm really looking forward to letting you know how the world thinking part made of the day. Yes, Councillor Ryan?
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I was just wondering if Councillor Blatz would take a friendly amendment, just adding in that as well as proclaiming that we recognize the province-wide initiative or participate in the province-wide initiative to light it up blue if possible.
Before we ask Councillor Blatz if she'd like to do that, we'll hear from Director Wagstaff.
And again, if that is accepted as a friendly amendment, you can drop the if possible. We have discussed through with operations, the operational capacity to be able to set up and take down and fund the lights.
And we'll ask permission from Councillor Blatz what she'd like to do.
Well, it was part of the financial considerations at the bottom, so I made the assumption that it was already in the works and already a done deal. So I'm perfectly happy with the way my motion reads.
Good, and Mr. Wagstaff confirmed that.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much from everyone, and I'll once again call for the vote. Those in favor? That's carried. Thank you very much. That was well presented. Thank you very much. Councillor Daly.
Thank you, Worship. I just want to direct us to Ms. Dixon, that I am the representative from council on the FCSS Advisory Committee, and I'd just like to thank her for running very efficient meetings and all the work that they do to support our citizens to make Olds a better place to live.
Thank you, Ms. Dixon and Councillor Daly. Very good. Thank you for your time here this afternoon. We're going to move on now, please, to page 56 in your agenda, and this is item 6F, requesting the position of our interim Chief Administrative Officer for the town. Councillor Wilson, would you like to put that motion on the table, or?
Sure, Mayor Dole.
Thank you.
I move that council appoint Mrs. Sheena Linderman to the position of interim Chief Administrative Officer for the town of Olds, effective February 25th, 2022 at 4:30 p.m. to hold office until a permanent Chief Administrative Officer is appointed by council.
Thank you for that. And I'm opening the floor up if anyone has any questions. Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Those in favor? That's carried. Did you vote? Thank you. Very good. And as you all know, we've already said that Mr. Merritt will be gone at 4:30 p.m. that day, and we'll be saying good morning or good afternoon. Oh, I guess it would be evening. Thank you very much. And we have 4 directors for all of you that know in the town of Olds, and I just want you to know that we're all working together as council with the directors, and well, working together constantly every day, 300 and how many days a year. We're never going to let anybody be without any support, so we're here to support everybody. Council is, and I'm sure you all in your teams around as staff also support each other, so thank you. On page 57, we have our REP update. Mr. Merritt, who would like to speak to that?
I'll ask Director Wagstaff to give an update. This happened between the Policy and Priorities Committee and this council meeting, so I'll just get Director Wagstaff to give the update and how it impacts the town.
Where's yours?
As you can tell, that there isn't any attachment or a presentation, that this will be the shortest update that we've had in 2 years, short 1 month, on anything COVID. Of course, as you're all aware, immediately following the announcement from the province, we took into action to end the restriction exemption program for the Aquatic Centre and the Sportsplex. With that, previous to that announcement, we had anticipated that there was going to be an announcement pending from the imminent, as the Premier put it, from the government. So we had already issued our notice to our security firm, prior to the announcement. And in the meantime, of course, they are no longer checking for QR codes or vaccine documentation. However, because we did have carryover in time until our conclusion of that contract was complete, we have assigned those individuals to be at both facilities, just reminding individuals of the mandate for masking for adults is still in place until March 1st. But that their approach is to be to inform individuals and let those individuals make their own responsible decisions as to whether or not they're wearing masks. That said, that will be complete as the end of this week, and from that point forward, it will be our own staff that will be dealing with any regulations from that point forward.
The floor to questions for Director Wagstaff, if there are any. Mr. Merritt?
Just want to say, for almost 2 years now, the town of Olds has always followed the province's lead in regards to following health orders and regulations and legislation. And with the change in rep, that's a continuation of our policy, is not to get involved in the health, but to be able to enforce what we're able to enforce, so to speak.
I see no questions at this time. I would then ask for a motion, please. Councillor Cummings.
Thank you. I'd like to put the motion forward that council accept the restriction exemption program update as information.
Very good. I'll call for the vote. Those in favor? That's carried. Thank you very much. We have no reports at this regular council meeting. We're moving down to number 8, financial, 8A. This is page 58 of your agenda. And I believe Ms. Sheena Linnerman will take care of this. Director Linnerman.
Thank you. So the first one up here is the request for tax cancellation. So under the MGA, council may, if they find it equitable to do so, cancel all or any part of a tax. So during our year-end review, we have come across 3 designated manufactured homes that are no longer in the town of Olds. 2 have been demolished and 1 was destroyed in a fire. Because owners of designated manufactured homes do not own the land they reside on, when the home has been demolished or no longer exists in the town of Olds, we no longer have anything tangible that we can use for tax recovery. So homes 1 and 3 in the listing here have tax arrears going on 2 or more years. Many attempts have been made for collection from both of these. Home number 2 is just 2021 taxes owing. These were prorated based on the fire damage. However, attempts to contact this homeowner to date have also been unsuccessful.
Sharing that information, the first question that came out of my head is, how does this happen? How do you demolish a building without nobody seeing what they're doing, and how does it work? I understand that this has happened in the past, but can you help me understand that, or us?
I honestly wish I knew myself. A lot of times they will remove the home from the town and take it wherever to be demolished. Our line of communication with our mobile homes communities needs to be a little bit better in order for us to know when this is happening, obviously, but yeah, it's unfortunate.
Stan, any further questions? Councillor Daly?
Thank you, Your Worship. And this is to Director Linderman. Yeah, I think you just shone some light onto my question, being that they were mobile homes we're talking about. And so these were mobile homes that are in a park. And so is not the land owned by the park then, or is the land owned by the homeowner?
No, so the land is owned by the mobile home community. So they lease it from them. And so they do own the home. The homeowner would own their mobile home and they pay taxes on that, but they do not pay taxes on the land. So in the MGA, as soon as that home leaves our municipality, that's when the taxes stop. That is the only tax that is prorated halfway through the year. And unfortunately, when it's gone, we have no recourse ourselves. We can't put a lien on anything that's not there.
Oh, so these are just the taxes that have been levied against the mobile home, not against the land?
Correct.
Thank you for the clarification.
Would it be fair to ask then if the owner of the mobile home park, if the owner, would they also then have someone flee from their rent at the same time? They must see them pulling it out.
Yes, and I would assume they see them pulling out. That's only an assumption, of course. mobile homes are tricky business to do in taxes. I think a lot of homes are abandoned as well. People just leave them completely, and then the mobile home park is stuck, not only not receiving rent, but then not being able, disposing of this mobile home, yeah.
Further questions, Councillor Wilson and then Councillor Blatz?
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I just had a question for Director Linderman. Without giving away any insider information and trade secrets, what are our best efforts to try and locate and collect the small amount of funds that are in arrears or bad debt? Do we get the bounty hunter involved or anything? Or?
So normally we send, of course, our monthly letters to them. We phone, our tax clerk is constantly phoning, trying to find these owners. We do have now home number 1 was sent to collections, and that has also been unsuccessful in any sort of collection.
Blatz?
Through you, Your Worship, through to Ms. Linderman. So basically, though, the landowner may not realize that there's tax arrears, correct? Because it's not anything that we would necessarily notify the landowner that they owed the town of Olds taxes. I mean, chances are they probably paid their monthly rental, lot rental, and so therefore it wouldn't be on their radar at all, potentially. That would be my assumption. I mean,
Yes.
we all know about assumptions, but.
Yeah, and we normally don't notify the mobile home community owner until we start tax recovery proceedings on a home.
Right.
And then they would be CC'd in any correspondence, but none of these hit those thresholds.
Thank you.
Good. We're looking at 3 different motions as these speak to 3 different properties. So I'd look for a motion for number 1, please. Councillor Blatz?
I so move that all taxes owing on roll number 8003200 be written off.
Call for the vote. Those in favor? That's carried. Councillor Wilson?
Tough day for me today. Thank you, Mayor Dahl. For the second motion, I motion that all taxes owing on roll number 8003800 be written off.
I will call for the motion. Those in favor? That's carried. And for the third motion, Councillor Walsh?
Yeah, I move that all taxes owing on roll 8005700 be written off.
Once again, I'll call for the motion. Those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Page 60, item 8B. Once again, Padnoma Support Tax Exemption. Is this Ms. Director Linderman?
Thank you. So now we'll move on to a couple tax exemption applications we received. So in section 362 of the MGA, it allows for property tax exemption in whole or in part when property is owned or leased by a nonprofit organization and that organization meets the conditions and qualifications in the Community Organization Property Tax Exemption Regulation. Included in your agenda were the basic requirements that must be met. So today we have 2 exemptions to look at. The first application was received from Padnoma Support Services. This application met all of the timeline and information requirements. Council now needs to determine if the regulation requirement that the property is being used for charitable and benevolent purpose that is for the benefit of the general public is met. So within the financial considerations area of the RFD, I have estimated that a full tax exemption for the space that is leased by Padnoma would be approximately $2,840. This number is based on 2021 tax levies, so an actual 2022 exemption, if granted, may vary.
Any questions? Councillor Cummings?
Thank you, Your Worship, and this is for Director Lindeman. When these requests come in, is this a continuous process, or must they request this tax exemption every single year?
So the municipality can choose to grant once a year or for a maximum of 3 years.
In this case, it is just for the 2022 year moving forward?
This one I did, council can choose. I just find 3 years is hard to keep track of, whereas 1 year is easier.
Then,
Go ahead.
thank you, Your Worship. So the general public, I'm a little confused with the term general public. No, sorry, this is the next one. Got my questions mixed up.
Good. Any further questions from council? Okay, we've got two, Councillor Wilson and Councillor Ryan.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I just have a couple of questions for Director Linderman. So is this the first time this organization has applied for the tax exemption?
Yes, this is the first time I have received one from Padnoma.
Okay, and the supplemental, please? Second of 3 supplementals, perhaps? Thank you. Does council have the option, there are 3 components as is indicated on the request for decision, the municipal tax, the education, the seniors. Do we have the option to pick and choose amongst those as to the exemption, or is it all or none?
No, you can choose any part of the
Okay.
tax to exempt.
And a final,
And then we'll go to Councillor Ryan.
thank you, Mayor Dahl. And is Padnoma in some, we can talk, in financial distress? Is there some motivator to this request other than to get an exemption? Is there any underlying conditions that you're aware of, that we're aware of? Did they submit financial statements?
They did. That is one of the requirements, and everything, they did submit everything that was required. As far as I'm aware, they are not in financial trouble, but again, they are a nonprofit organization.
Ryan?
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. Through you to Director Lindeman. Ms. Lindeman, do we know how many tax exemptions we give to the nonprofits in town?
I do not have that off the top of my head, but I can bring that to a future council meeting.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Councillor Ryan. Oh, sorry, Councillor Ryan, then Councillor Daly.
No, go. You may go ahead, Councillor Daly.
Offering it to you.
Thank you, Your Worship. You mentioned, Director Lindeman, that the criteria was a charitable, significant impact to the citizens of Olds. Did I quote that right from your criteria?
That it's for the benefit of the general public.
Is there definitions of that?
I do believe I have it from the regulation right here.
Thank you.
So first, the definition of charitable or benevolent purpose means the relief of poverty, the advancement of education, the advancement of religion, or any other purpose beneficial to the community.
Thank you.
Councillor Ryan?
Thank you, Mayor Dahl, and through you to Director Lindeman. So how does Padnoma fit in with that criteria?
Personally, I believe they benefit, they are beneficial to the community. So included in your agenda was their application. And under there, they're talking about supporting individuals with developmental disabilities in the community and their daily lives. They're talking about grocery service and lawn and snow care business that they provide as well to the community.
Okay, no further questions at this time. Councillor Wilson?
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. Just along those lines and further, like to the financial statements, Director Lindeman, so do we know what percentage the property and education and seniors housing taxes of their total budget, their total operation? Or maybe that was there and I missed it.
You'll have to give me a moment to look into this. Okay. No, are you meaning though how much of Padnoma's
Right,
budget?
yes. Of their annual operating budget, $3,000 in taxes, is that most of their operating budget? A very small percentage?
a very small percentage of their operating budget. And this is a new building for Padnoma. They previously had leased a different building, so I don't know how it compared. I didn't look at what it compared to their previous building.
Okay, thank you.
I have one question. If they're not, they say they're a not-for-profit. So how do they pay their staff?
They still receive revenues, but all of their revenues that they receive must go into their organization.
Thank you. Any further questions? Well, then, if we don't, I'd call for a motion, please. Was that you, Councillor Walsh? Okay, Councillor Walsh for the motion. Are we seeing more of these come to the town in the past few years? Or I've missed the past 4 years. Are we starting to see more?
I don't think so, no. It's about the same, yeah.
Councillor Wilson, and then the motion from Councillor Walsh.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. So further to the earlier question from Councillor Ryan, I think it would be good information to know, as Councillor Ryan asked, how many exemptions we have around the property tax and the dollar value. And can we expect more exemption requests coming through, or has the deadline passed?
The deadline has passed, so they need to have them in by November 30th of the year prior
So the two that are here are the two that we will be seeing.
for the 2022 year.
Okay, thank you.
Ryan?
Thank you, Mayor Dolan. Just supplemental to that. So we have two here, but we have ongoing ones, do we not? And I'm kind of concerned of how many we do have because we don't know. So I'm leery of going into something with that when we have a big question mark up in the air.
So correct, we do have other ones. I'm going to say off the top of my head, we have 10 total. The dollar value, I wouldn't say is significant in the grand scheme of our tax revenue.
Something we certainly can with your comment with regards to a question mark that we might all have around the table. Could we not speak about that at our service level review and try to seek to understand more about where we're at? Ms. Linderman and then Councillor Blatz before we go to the motion.
I'm sorry, I just had one thing I wanted to add. The way that the MGA reads as well is if these nonprofit organizations do meet all of this criteria, council has to grant that exemption. It's not a shall, it is a shall. They have to grant that. They are exempt if all of these are met. It's exactly how it reads.
So would you like to withdraw your comment?
I was just going to make that comment that I believe it is stated that if they meet the criteria, that council must grant it.
Thank you. Okay. Back again. Hold your thought, Councillor Walsh. We're going to go back to Councillor Wilson and Councillor Ryan.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. So just further to my earlier question, so Director Linderman, you're indicating if they meet all the criteria, it's a given that they be accepted. But again, we can ask, request, or exempt only a portion of the tax, right? So exempt the education tax as an example, or the senior housing. We can do one of the three components, right?
Correct.
Okay.
And so I think it's in the way that it reads, MGA Section 362, is that one point I put there, point 3, is how much does this benefit the general public? And that's where council can use their leeway in how much they can exempt.
Councillor Ryan.
Well, thank you, Mayor Dolan. I think just a comment would be then, if we have to as a municipality do that, but then education tax and the seniors requisition are both out of our hands. And so why would we waive those when they're not even, under our purview to do so? I'm kind of concerned about doing that and setting a precedent going forward that we waive education tax and seniors requisition when, again, like I say, it's not our taxation.
Director Linderman?
Yes, and I see what you mean. I do want to just tell council, so of all of our exemptions, there is only one where it is municipal only that was exempt. All of the other ones are all three.
Councillor Ryan?
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. Well, then supplemental, we might want to be looking at that going forward from the other ones as well.
Definitely deserves a discussion from council as a whole. Today, we'll just deal with the question on the table. Councillor Blatz?
Thank you, Your Worship. And I think going forward then, as you indicated, perhaps maybe during service level or during our budget discussions, Director Linderman can bring that information to us and we can have a fulsome discussion at that point in time and get actual numbers and clarification on each individual property that we are giving this tax exemption to.
Discussion. We have this, the question on the table today, and Councillor Walsh is willing to make that motion.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. Actually, I've been through this discussion many times. It's kind of like deja vu. Anyway, again, just a note, it depends on the landlord also. Sometimes they include tax in their rent, and sometimes they don't. And obviously, in this case, they don't. So I move that the application for property tax exemption be submitted by Padnoma Support Service, Inc., be accepted for the 2022 taxation year.
Thank you. We've had all our questions, I believe, so I will now call for the vote. Okay, Councillor Ryan, one and last question.
All right, thank you, Mayor Dahl. I apologize for this, but I just wanted clarity. So then when we talk about property tax exemption, is that all three areas then?
The way it reads, yes, it would be all three.
What we're voting for now? I'll call for the vote. Those in favor? Those opposed? Okay, that's carried. Thank you. Page 64 now in your agenda. And that is item 8C, Central Alberta Pregnancy Care Center Society. Director Linderman?
So the next exemption application is, as you said, the Central Alberta Pregnancy Care Center. The Central Alberta Pregnancy Care Center previously leased space in the Uptown area for which they were granted an exemption. They have now purchased their own building and are seeking an exemption for this new location. Again, council must consider if the regulation requirement that the property is being used for charitable and benevolent purpose, that is for the benefit of the general public, is met. The estimated full tax exemption for this property is $4,252.
Open the floor to, I am no longer on the, for those of you that are wondering, because I was a volunteer on that, on the Central Alberta Pregnancy Care Society. I have no longer been on there for over the past year. So I am no longer involved. Councillor Cummings.
Thank you, Your Worship. So this is where I had that earlier question I kind of stopped, was general public and the way we define general public. So this is a very specific group of people when we're dealing with pregnancy support. I just want some reassurance that it does meet that general population term. We saw in Padnoma that it does not just the special needs people in our community, but also people who need grocery pickup, people who need their shovels, their snow shoveled and yards raked and paper shredding. So there's some other general public stuff in here. This is a very specific subset of the community. I just not too sure if that meets the general population term, the definition, because I don't see the definition.
So I do have a definition for general public. Means pertaining to the general community rather than a group with limited membership or a group of business associates.
My past experience, I could share that they provide new mothers or pregnant mothers that need help with free clothing for their children, and as well as the woman that needs care. It includes cribs, high chairs, pretty well everything, and it's all taken care of by volunteers to wash and make sure it's in order for them to give to them freely. Everything they do is done by volunteers that I'm aware of. Supplemental, and then we'll go to Mr. Wagstaff.
Thanks, Your Worship. No, I'm fully aware of what the organization does. I support it through our thrift store by providing them products when they need it. My daughter used the facility when she was pregnant. But it doesn't discount the concern about the general public. Community groups and nonprofits, whether they're valuable to the community or good to a group of community members, the definition in this tax exemption program is the general public rather than a group of people, a subset. And when we're talking about this particular group, it does deal with just a subset, and that's the pregnant women in our community. So I'm just unsure if it meets the definition of general population, the general public. And if this is not the first time councils previously have gone through this and approved this group, you said they have had this last year and so forth. So that bit of news helps me with that understanding a little bit. Thank you.
Could help clarify more, but they also service MIN and mental health issues as well. Mr. Wagstaff?
So I was going to speak to the broad scope that this community group does provide support for. They are one that does work with the town administration and staff. They also present the council, just before I get to this point, usually on an annual basis. I'd have to look back. I know with the last 2 years of COVID fog, I'm just trying to remember if they have presented. I'm thinking they have not in the last couple of years, but because time flies. But typically on an annual basis, this is one of the groups that will come to PMP and present to council as an update for their activity. With regards to the services that they provide to general public, it is a wide spectrum because it does provide supports to both males and females that are in circumstances of pregnancy, unwanted or otherwise. They provide supports for young and old and the families in the support networks, as well as sexual health as well. So they are providing a spectrum of services that are from a nonprofit.
Merritt, and then Councillor Ryan.
I think that was well said, Director Wagstaff. What they don't do is exclude people. If people need the use of this facility or this group, they do provide that service. So they don't exclude people, but not everybody will require that service at one point in time. So I think that's how the lens you have to look at it from. They're not exclusionary.
Non-exclusionary, and if I may also just add, they also provide supports for family parenting and adoption as well.
That's correct. And counseling. Councillor Ryan?
Thank you, Mayor Dolan. I was going to add that in their application, they do point out that they offer programs to men, women, and families, so that seems to be not just one little small area of focus. I'm going to mention the other thing that I wanted to bring up, which was the same as I did with the last one with municipal tax revenue and excluding the education and seniors portion. For the same reason as the last one.
You? Any further questions? I believe we all are looking forward to discussing this more in a deeper value in the future. But thank you for that. So I would invite a motion at this time then, please. Councillor Daly?
Thank you, Your Worship. I move that the application for property tax exemption submitted by the Central Alberta Pregnancy Care Center Society be accepted for the 2022 taxation year.
Thank you. And we've asked our questions, so I will then call for the vote. Those in favor? Those opposed? That's carried. Thank you. Page 68, item 9A, correspondence and information. I will ask council if they have any questions at this time. Councillor Cummings.
Thank you, Your Worship, and directed to the staff here. So the first item A, the Alberta 5+ Summer and Winter Games kind of really timely since we had discussion on Monday, the sports tourism with Sandra Blythe. Is this something that we are looking at, or is this something we should direct to look at more specifically, or?
In my mind, this is something that should probably be raised at the municipal area partnership. Oftentimes, something of this size will overwhelm a smaller community, but collectively could be handled by Mountain View County municipalities, where different facilities could be utilized to make sure that there's minimal cost. There will be a cost associated with this, which the province and I think the feds do provide funding for, but I would think it would probably require a larger discussion. We've had discussions in the past in regards to submitting bids on games, seniors games or Canada, and so I think it requires more research, and it should have at least a area level discussion in my mind.
Thank you very much. Mr. Director Wagstaff?
And further to MAP having a discussion on that, by no coincidence, I don't think, and it's a long title, but the sport consultant for sport, physical activity, recreation, Alberta culture, and status of women did reach out as a follow-up as well, directly to each municipality. And it specifically, this individual was noting that they did participate in the regional master plan, and they were following up as to offering their support if the municipalities wanted to pursue it. From the discussion that we had in the working group that worked on the regional master plan with representatives from all the municipalities, this was one of the areas we had some robust discussion with the consultant on. And I do know it's one of the ones that will take some further investigation, that it would be premature for us to look at this soon, because that analysis, as we're all aware, is just beginning within our municipalities to say what will it take and what do we have.
Sorry for not turning my mic off. I concur. Mr. Merritt?
In addition, this does require a robust discussion, because if a master plan is going to be enacted and there is going to be a need in the future, this is a possible good way of getting money. But to build for an event is usually not a good idea if the need is not going to be persistent afterwards, because that oftentimes you see it partially used or not used. So I think it requires probably a full discussion of all the municipalities and MAP to host something like this and to entertain something, but it could be beneficial depending on also what the master plan requirements are going to be, and if those facilities would be needed into the future. It is an opportunity to get substantial funding, capital funding from the province.
Yes, I agree. It's a lobbying issue that would go to municipal area partnerships. And it does take a long time. We have done this in the past with past council, and it took almost a year in advance to prepare. Director Wagstaff?
And to clarify, when I said premature, I meant premature to make an application at this deadline.
Very good. Any further questions or comments? Councillor Ryan?
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. Not on that one, but are we going through them one at a time, or you want to have?
You can certainly choose whichever item you choose.
Okay, thank you. The next one along would be the one from Municipal Affairs. I see that we did not receive the interim grant for the finance. So I was just wondering, from Director Lindman's position, obviously we still have a need there. Would this be something you could bring back then at service level review?
Yeah, I'll speak to this first. There is a chance that once municipalities get it, they'll make a decision that, no, they're not in a position to do it. One of the factors is when CAOs leave or things of that nature, they sometimes decide it's not best to pursue it. So I would think we would still be in the list until further notice, because it does happen almost on an annual basis that some do withdraw after a while and realize that it's not only the budget that is a consideration, is the staff to manage the intern as well is probably the more critical item. So I would keep it in abeyance for the time being and wait and see, and let's be hopeful that someone has decided that they're not going to pursue it, then we will certainly be available to do so.
I applaud Minister McIver from Municipal Affairs for considering an alternate if there's changes to the selected hosts this year, and I'm certain he will once again remind us if there is. Good question, though. Thank you. Councillor Daly.
Just to go along with that, thank you, Your Worship. To go along with that to CAO merit, is there, in your experience, is there a time frame that we would know that? Would we know that before our service level agreements are discussed, or is it a summer thing that we'll hear? Or?
No, you would know probably by the service level. For the timing, it's probably going to be in the next couple of months that the decisions have to be made. And so, yeah, I would say within the next month, there will be knowledge if municipalities not going to carry forth with their planned intern and open it up to those few that have been selected to be alternates.
Students move on. So it opens the door, and it has happened in the past. Very good. Anything further? Councillor Wilson?
Thank you, Mayor Dahl, and to put us into the time warp, and my apologies, if I could retrace our steps back to the 55-plus letter or memo, and I just wanted to confirm then, so I'm hearing there are opportunities for MAP, collaboration there, and some further work that needs to be done, but how do we kind of diarize this so that we don't lose it? Because to me, this is part of, as Councillor Cummings said, growth and development and sport and art and culture and getting our community going much beyond the 0.3% population growth that we saw in the census. So what's the process work? How do we make sure this doesn't get permanently to the back burner?
That's a very good question. Thank you very much. We're right in the middle of receiving copious amounts of agenda items for municipal area partnerships. I'm working with Reeve Albers and myself, and tomorrow I'm speaking with some other mayors that have agenda items. Our legislative clerk, Marcy, is our recording secretary for that. We will need our CAO on board at the time before we start actually sitting for municipal area partnerships, but we still will take the agenda items forward just for information, especially the terms of reference. It has never been reviewed, and it's the first priority that will need to be done on the plate. So that we will make sure that this is in order and in a bring forward for the future, for sure. But as well, we're waiting for the Mountain View County to receive their presentation also from the Parks and Recreation Master Plan. So I have it in the bring forward file for you.
Thank you.
Very good. Okay. Any further questions? Motion, please. Councillor Ryan.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I move that the correspondence and information report ending February 14th, 2022 be received for information.
Thank you. Are there any further questions? Good questions. Those in favor? That's carried. We are at the point now where we do have to go to a closed session for an item. The meeting and attendees have two options for continued participation in virtual council meeting. You may stay online in the virtual meeting platform, and administration will pause the live stream while council is in their closed session. Once council has returned, the meeting will be brought back into the open meeting forum. You may leave the virtual meeting platform and watch our Town of Olds website or our Facebook pages live for live updates as to when council will return to open forum to rejoin the meeting. And administration will post when the meeting will reconvene, and the meeting attendees are able to rejoin the virtual meeting at this time. I will be seeking a motion at this time then, please. from council, and the item will be FOIP Section 27 and 25. Oh, I'm sorry, Councillor Wilson, and an addition of 16. My apology.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I will make that motion. I may need some help as far as who the attendees will be to remain, but I move that council go into a closed session to discuss items under FOIP Sections 25, disclosure harmful to economic and other interests of a public body, FOIP Section 27, privileged information, and FOIP Section 16, disclosure harmful to the business interests of a third party. I would certainly assume that all the council will remain, CAO, Director Linderman. Beyond that, I'm not sure.
Ask at this time for Section 16. Who will be staying?
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I would thank all of council, the CAO, Director Lindeman. And that would be it, I would think.
Need our legislative clerk at this time?
I can't speak to the ones that I'm not aware of, to be honest. The two that are on, the legislative clerk, and I know for one of them, it's all with my executive team, and the other, it's just Director Wagstaff and Director Linderman.
Well, the first one where our legislative clerk will be here is which section? You would like 25?
The legislative clerk would be a part of both the section 25 and 27.
Okay.
It's,
Okay.
It's the other two are the others I'm not aware.
Thank you. So that's the motion on the floor. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you.
Did you know you can find your favorite artist's concerts on Spotify? Tap the button to see a list of upcoming, personalized live and virtual events just for you.
No matter how big or small your business is, making your own ad on Spotify Ad Studio is as easy as 1, 2, 3. 1. Let us know what you want your ad to say and pick out your music. We'll voice and produce it at no extra cost. 2. Reach Spotify listeners based on their interests, demographics, music tastes, and more. 3. Set your budget, set your dates, and you're done. Try it today at adstudio.spotify.com or tap the banner to learn more.
If you ask Canadian dairy farmers what it takes to become global leaders in sustainable farming, they might say,
conserving wetlands with Ducks Unlimited Canada.
Working with clean farms to find innovative ways to reduce plastics.
Supporting biodiversity with Tree Canada.
If you ask dairy cows, well, they always say the same thing.
Dairy Farmers of Canada, doing more today because we're here for tomorrow. Find out more at herefortomorrow.ca.
We're soaring, flying. There's not a star in heaven that we can't reach.
If we're trying till we're breaking free.
You know the world can see us in a way that's different than who we are.
Creating space between us till we're separate hearts.
But your faith, it gives me strength, strength to believe. We're breaking free. We're soaring, flying. There's not a star in heaven that we can reach. If we're trying, yeah, we're breaking free. Oh, we're breaking free. Can you feel it building? Like a wave that ocean just can't control.
It's just it's 4:15 on my clock. Good. Thank you. Thank you. 'Cause, thank you. I'm calling the meeting back to order. Are we live? Good, thank you very much. Welcome back. I would call the meeting back to reconvene from closed for 4:15. And ask for adjournment, please. Oh, Councillor Walsh, I'll give it to you there. Thank you very much.
Motion to adjourn.
At 4:16.
No, it's still 4:50.
4:15? At 4:15, thank you. We've got a lot of clocks around here. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you all viewers.